wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Today's topic is the most important topic, that is weak verbs, al-af'al al-mu'tal, because the rest of the topics depend on this important lesson. Because if you understand what exactly are the weak verbs and the categories of them, then it becomes easy for you to understand the future lessons about the weak verbs. So let's begin. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As you all know, there are two main types of verbs in Arabic, which we learned in our previous lessons, that al-af'al, which is divided into al-af'al as-sahiha, that is sound verbs, and the second one is al-af'al al-mu'tal, weak verbs. Al-af'al as-sahiha, the sound verbs, are further divided into regular sound verbs and irregular sound verbs, right? And we all know about the regular sound verbs. They don't have a waw or a ya or an alif as one of the three root letters, okay? And the weak letters are three weak letters: alif, waw and ya, okay? They are vowels in Arabic. So the regular sound verbs, they don't have a waw or a ya or an alif in them. For example, we learned about the 6 babs, that is fa'ala, yaf'alu, daraba, yadribu, qatala, yaqtulu, sami'a, yasma'u, karuma, yakrumu, fataha, yaftahu, right? And the irregular sound verbs we learned in our previous lessons, and they're further divided into two types: mahmuz and muda'af. The sound verbs as-salim are the verbs which does not have a hamza or an alif or a waw or a ya as one of the radicals. And its second and third radicals are not identical as well. That is of the same kind. That's why it's called as sound verb. Al-af'al as-sahiha or al-af'al as-salim. Most of the Arabic verbs belong to this category. And we have learned the 6 different babs, that is fa'ala, yaf'alu, sami'a, yasma'u, daraba, yadribu, qatala, yaqtulu, fataha, yaftahu, karuma, yakrumu. And the irregular sound verbs, there are further divided into two types: mahmuz, hamzated verbs, and muda'af, double-lettered verbs. Al-af'al al-mahmuz or hamzated verbs, where a hamza is one of the consonants, right? We learned in our previous lesson, that is, for example, akala, ya'kulu. The next type of irregular sound verbs is muda'af, that is geminate or doubled verbs, where the second and the third radicals of the root are the same. For example, we had madda, yamuddu. Let's move to the weak verbs, al-af'al al-mu'tal. And they are further divided into 3 types: mithal, ajwaf and naqis, okay? And just remember, the first letter is M, that is M for mithal, and the second letter is ajwaf, that is A, and the third letter is naqis, that is N. You can remember it as man, M-A-N, okay? So mithal, ajwaf and naqis, okay? And mithal is further divided into 2 categories: mithal wawi and mithal yai. Okay, mithal wawi and mithal yai. An example for mithal wawi is wa'ada, ya'idu. You can see the weak letter waw is in the beginning. It's wa'ada. And in mithal yai, ya'isa, the ya is in the beginning, ya'isa. And in the second type, ajwaf, this is further divided into 3 categories: ajwaf wawi, ajwaf yai, and ajwaf with alif. And the example is, for ajwaf wawi is qala yaqulu. And for ajwaf yai, the example is zada yazidu. And for ajwaf with alif is khafa yakhafu. Weak letter is in the ain kalima, the second radical. And in mithal, the weak letter was in the first radical. Naqis is further divided into 4 categories. Naqis wawi, naqis yai, naqis sa'a, naqis laqiya. This is divided based on the different bab. If it belongs to nasara yansuru, then it is naqis wawi. Like we have da'a yada'u. And naqis yai is hada yahdi, daraba yadribu bab. And naqis sa'a is sa'a yasa'a, fataha yaftahu bab. Last type naqis, the example is laqiya yalqa. So this is sami'a yasma'u bab. Okay. So this is the overview of the weak verbs, and in our coming lessons we are going to learn in detail about mithal wawi with madi chart, mudare chart, amar, nahi, madi majhul, mudare majhul, and jazima and nasiba verbs, and all those things with Quranic examples and the extra vocabulary for each of these. Like mithal wawi is a separate lesson, mithal yai is a separate lesson, ajwaf wawi, ajwaf yai, ajwaf with alif, they are all separate lessons. Al-af'al al-mu'tal, the unsound verbs. Why are they not sound verbs? Because they have the weak letters in them. Most Arabic verbs, that is fi'l, have only 3 letters which are called as radicals. The first radical is fa, that is fa kalima, right? And the second radical is ayn kalima. And the third radical is lam, that is lam kalima. And these names are taken from the verb fa'ala, which is used as a reference pattern for all the verbs. Okay? Whereas the weak verbs, al-mu'tal, the unsound verbs, this is called as mu'tal. If any of the 3 radicals is either an alif or a waw or a ya, then the verb is called as mu'tal, or weak verb, or sick or unsound verb. The letters alif, waw or ya are called in Arabic as huruf al-illah. Okay? Huruf al-illah are called as weak letters. For example, you can see yasara, to ease, wasala, to arrive, radiya, to be pleased, da'a, to call or invite, waqa, to save. And here you can see that there are weak letters waw, ya and alif in different positions. Yasara is at the beginning and da'a, the alif is at the end, right? So depending on the positions, they are divided into different categories. There are 3 different classes of weak verbs, al-mu'tal. The first type is al-fi'l al-mithal, that is assimilated verbs. Mithal is an irregularity when the first letter is a weak letter, waw. Verbs where the first radical is a long vowel, usually a waw. Okay? For example, we have wa'ada, ya'idu. A mithal verb is that whose first letter is weak. And mithal is again divided into 2 types. The first type is mithal wawi, and then we have mithal yai. The mithal verbs always starts with a waw or a ya. And the example for mithal wawi is wa'ada ya'idu. Notice that the weak letter is at the beginning in the fa kalima, the fa radical. And mithal yai, the weak letter ya is at the beginning, ya isa. And the next type is ajwaf. Okay, al-fi'l al-ajwaf is called as hollow verb. Ajwaf or hollow verb is that whose second or middle letter, that is ayn kalima, is a weak letter. Most ajwaf verbs have an alif as its second or middle letter. The origin of the middle alif is mostly a waw or a ya. That is turned into an alif. If you look at the examples, qala, right? If you say qala, what do you see in the middle? What is the ayn radical? Alif, right? So you might see this is alif, but the origin of this alif is a waw or a ya that has turned into an alif. Okay, inshallah, we are going to learn in detail. The ajwaf is further divided into 3 categories. The first category is ajwaf wawi, And the second category is ajwaf yai. And the third category is ajwaf with alif. Verbs where the second radical is either a waw, that is ajwaf wawi, qala yaqulu. Ain kalima or the second radical is ya, this is called as ajwaf yai, and the example is zada yazidu. Okay, and if the second radical or an ain kalima is an alif, that is called as khafa yakhafu, and these are few verbs in which the waw or ya are not turned into alif. And the example for ajwaf wawi is qala yaqulu. You can see qala, the middle radical is having an alif. This is actually a waw or a ya, and we are going to learn in detail what exactly it is in our coming lessons. And in ajwaf yai, the middle radical is an alif again, and the mudari is yazidu, zada yazidu. And ajwaf with alif, khafa yakhafu, and again we have an alif in the middle radical. So this is ajwaf or hollow word. The third type of weak word, that is al-af'al al-mu'tal, is naqis. Naqis is called as defective verb. Naqis, the weak letter, occurs at the end. Naqis is further divided into four types: naqis wawi, naqis yai, naqis sa'a, naqis laqiya. And the first category is verbs with a waw as the last root letter. And this we are going to learn in lesson 24, inshallah. And the example is da'a yada'u, which means to call. Da'a, and where is the weak letter occurring here? In the lam radical, like da'a, dal, ain and alif. It is at the lam radical. And the second type is verbs with a ya as the last root letter. And this is of the form hada yahdi. And this we are going to learn in lesson 25. Hada yahdi is to guide. Okay, and the third type is verbs with a ya as the last root letter. Okay, and for this we are going to learn in lesson 26, and the example is sa'a yas'a, to strive after. And the last type of naqis is verbs with a ya as the last root letter, and this we are going to learn in lesson 27 of unit 2, inshallah. And the example is laqiya yalqa. And how is this divided into four categories is depending on the bab. Naqis wawi, it belongs to da'a yada'u, nasara yansuru bab. Naqis yai, hada yahdi, this belongs to daraba yadribu bab. And naqis sa'a yas'a belongs to fataha yaftahu bab. And naqis laqiya yalqa belongs to sami'a yasma'u bab. Okay, so that's how it's divided into four different categories. And there's one more category called lafif, okay, where there are two weak letters. Okay, here we just learned about only one weak letter coming, right? Either at the beginning or in the middle or at the end. Fa kalima, ain kalima or lam kalima, right? But there's one more category called as lafif, where you have two weak verbs. Al-fi'l al-lafif, this is the fourth type of weak verb. Lafif means a verb which has two weak letters in its root form. When there are two letters out of three that are vowels, the irregularity is called as lafif. The letters that make a verb sick or weak are what? Alif, waw and ya. And lafif means two letters out of three are weak. There are two kinds of lafif based on the position of the weak letters. The first one is lafif mafruq, where the first root letter and the last root letter, fa kalima and the lam kalima, are having the weak letters or vowels. That is called as lafif mafruq. And the second type is lafif maqroon, okay, where the second root letter and the third root letters are vowels, or the ain radical and the lam radical, or the ain kalima or the lam kalima, are having the weak letters alif, waw or ya, and this is called as lafif maqroon. Sound verb, and then we have weak verb. And then in sound verb we have the mahmuz, the hamzated verb, And then we have the muda'af, the double-lettered verbs, the regular sound verbs, right? And then we have the weak verb. We have man, mithal, ajwaf, and naqif, and also lafif. Triliteral verbs, thulathi mujarrad, and they're divided into al-af'al as-sahiha, and we have al-af'al al-mu'tal. In al-af'al as-sahiha, it is divided into the sound verbs salim that do not have a weak letter, that is fataha, nasara, daraba, sami'a, karuma, right? So these are irregular verbs. We have muda'af and mahmuz, and we also learned about the example madda, yamuddu, and for hamzated verbs we have amara, qara'a, and sa'ala. And the weak verbs are divided into man, mithal, ajwaf, naqis. Can someone explain what is mithal? Where does the weak letter occur?
At the first. The weak letter occurs at the fa kalima.
And ajwaf?
The ain kalima. The
What?
weak letter. And for the naqis, the weak letter appears on the lam kalima.
What about lafif?
Lafif, in that we have two weak letters. So it can be the first and the third, or the second and the third.
MashaAllah. Right? So, Jazakallahu khairan everyone for your time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it and increase us all in knowledge. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.